Choi Hyun-jin was a man who owned the city of Seoul. He had politicians bowing at his feet and judges clearing their throats before they spoke his name. The Choi Syndicate moved money through every district, from the glittering towers of Gangnam to the winding alleys of Itaewon. But the one thing Choi Hyun-jin didn't have was a clue that his own execution had been scheduled for a Wednesday night inside his own penthouse. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was supposed to be in Tokyo. But when he walked through his front door a day early, the silence was deafening. He expected the hum of the air purifier, the soft click of his wife's heels on marble. Instead, he found Samantha, the courier who delivered his private documents, standing in the dark hallway, trembling. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She pressed a single finger to her lips and whispered two words that saved his life. "Stay silent." What Choi Hyun-jin heard next from the master bedroom didn't just break his heart, it shattered his entire reality. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. Let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue. The rain in Seoul didn't wash things clean, it just made the neon lights blur and the secrets sink deeper into the pavement. Choi Hyun-jin watched the wipers slap against the windshield of his black Genesis G90. He was alone, a rarity for the head of the Choi Syndicate. Usually, he traveled with a convoy, a wall of muscle in tailored suits with earpieces and cold eyes. But tonight was different. Tonight was about exhaustion. He had told everyone, including his wife Hye-rin and his right-hand man Park Hyun-soo, that the negotiations in Tokyo would take 4 days. But the deal with the Yakuza intermediaries had collapsed within 6 hours. Disgusted and jet-lagged, Hyun-jin had taken the private jet back immediately, bypassing his security detail at Gimpo Airport. He wanted the one thing his money usually couldn't buy: silence. His phone had been off since he landed. His driver didn't know he was back. His bodyguards were still in Tokyo, waiting at an empty hotel suite. Hyun-jin wanted to surprise his wife. They had been arguing lately about his hours, about the danger, about the possibility of starting a family. She said he was never present, even when he was in the room. He had bought a jade bracelet in Tokyo, the pale green stone that Hye-rin had admired in a magazine. A peace offering. He touched the velvet box in his jacket pocket as he killed the engine in the underground parking garage of the Hanam-dong Tower. The building was one of the most exclusive residential complexes in Seoul. Politicians, K-pop executives, and old money families lived here. But the top 3 floors belonged entirely to Choi Hyun-jin. $60 million of bulletproof glass, imported Italian marble, and security systems that could rival a military installation. He took the private elevator, the one that required his fingerprint and a retinal scan. The numbers climbed silently. 47, 48, 49. The doors opened into the foyer of his penthouse. Darkness. Hyun-jin frowned. The lights should have activated automatically. The smart home system tracked movement, adjusted temperature. You played Hye-rin's favorite classical music when she walked through a room. But now, there was nothing. Just the faint glow of Seoul's skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He stepped out of the elevator, his Italian leather shoes silent on the marble. The smell of the apartment hit him. Sandalwood candles, the faint trace of Hye-rin's perfume, and something else. Cigarette smoke. Hyun-soo's brand. The expensive Japanese ones he imported. Hyun-soo wasn't supposed to be here. A cold prickle of instinct danced down Hyun-jin's spine. It was the same feeling he'd had in a warehouse in Busan 15 years ago, right before an ambush that had killed 3 of his men. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Pregnant with violence. He loosened his tie and unbuttoned his suit jacket, his hand instinctively hovering near the compact Glock 19 holstered under his left arm. He had carried a weapon since he was 19 years old. It was as natural as breathing. He moved deeper into the apartment, past the living room with its white leather sofas and abstract art worth more than most people's houses. past the dining room with its 12-seat table where he had hosted senators and crime lords alike. He turned the corner toward the hallway that led to the master bedroom, and froze. A figure stood in the shadows near the service entrance, the one the household staff used. Hyunjin's hand snapped to his gun, drawing it in a blur of motion honed by decades of survival. "Don't move," he hissed in Korean. The figure gasped, stepping into the faint light filtering through the windows. It was Samantha. She was the courier, the one who delivered his private documents, the sensitive packages that couldn't be trusted to regular services. She worked for a discreet company that specialized in high-security deliveries for Seoul's elite. Hyunjin had used her services for 2 years now. She was always professional, always punctual, an American woman, black, maybe 26 or 27, with intelligent eyes and a quiet demeanor that made her easy to overlook. She was wearing her courier uniform, the navy blue jacket and pants with the company logo on the breast pocket. But she wasn't carrying any packages. She was pressed against the wall, her hands raised, her eyes wide with terror. "Mr. Choi?" she breathed, her Korean accented but fluent. You're supposed to be in Tokyo." "Plans changed," Hyunjin said, lowering the gun slightly but not holstering it. "What are you doing in my apartment at 11 o'clock at night? How did you get past security?" Samantha's eyes darted from his face to somewhere behind him, toward the master bedroom, then back. She was trembling so violently that Hyunjin could hear her teeth chattering. "Mr. Choi," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Please don't speak." "What?" She moved toward him, abandoning all professional distance. She reached out and grabbed his jacket sleeve, pulling him toward the service entrance, toward the shadows. "Hey!" Hyunjin began, annoyed. "Shh!" The sound was sharp, desperate. Tears were welling in her eyes. She pressed a finger to her lips, her gaze pleading with him. "Please, sir. Not a word. Stay silent." Hyunjin frowned, his annoyance warring with his instincts. He was the boss. No one shushed him. Not his captains, not his wife. Certainly not a courier. But the terror in her eyes was genuine. This wasn't a game. This wasn't a prank. This was fear of death. "Why?" he whispered, leaning in close. His gun was still in his hand. Samantha pointed a shaking finger toward the ceiling, toward the master bedroom on this floor. "Because," she whispered, her voice cracking, "they are celebrating your funeral." Hyunjin felt the blood drain from his face, leaving him cold and razor-focused. The funeral comment didn't make sense, but the tension in the air was undeniable. He signaled Samantha to stay in the alcove near the service entrance. He removed his shoes, leaving them on the marble. In his socks, he was a ghost. He crept down the hallway toward the master bedroom, sticking close to the wall where his shadow wouldn't be visible. The apartment was a tomb, but as he approached the bedroom door, he heard it. Voices. The door was slightly ajar, spilling a beam of warm golden light into the dark hallway. Hyunjin pressed his back against the wall. He inched closer to the doorframe, controlling his breathing, slowing his heartbeat the way he had learned to do before a kill. "Worried about the timeline, Hyun Soo-ya. If the plane lands in Tokyo and he doesn't check in at the Imperial Hotel, his contacts there will start making calls." It was Hye-rin, his wife of 7 years, but her voice wasn't the gentle, slightly whining tone she used with Hyunjin. It was smooth, calculating, and calm, the voice of a woman in complete control. Hyunjin's grip on his gun tightened until his knuckles ached. Park Hyun-soo, his underboss. The man Hyunjin had pulled from a gambling debt 20 years ago. The man whose sister Hyunjin had put through medical school. The man who called Hyunjin Hyung and swore loyalty until death. A deep laugh rumbled from the room. "Relax, Hye-rin. The pilot is on my payroll. The plane landed an hour ago. The manifest says Choi Hyunjin disembarked and checked into his suite. As far as the world knows, he's drinking whiskey at the Imperial right now." "And the actual Hyunjin?" Hye-rin asked. The sound of ice clinking against glass drifted out. "They were drinking his whiskey." the 25-year-old Yamazaki he had saved for special occasions. The actual Hyunjin is currently at the bottom of the Sea of Japan, Hyunsu said, his voice dripping with arrogance. Or he will be once the timer on the pressure valve I had installed on the jet's hydraulic line malfunctions on his return flight. Tragic accident. These private jets. You know how dangerous they can be. Hyunjin stopped breathing. But why wait for the return flight? Hyunsu continued. I prefer the narrative that he disappeared in Tokyo. It makes him look careless, weak. The great Choi Hyun-jin, taken out by his own recklessness. I don't care how he dies, Hyunsu. Hyerin sighed. I just want the paperwork signed. I want the estate. I want the offshore accounts. You'll get them, Hyunsu said. The sound of shifting fabric, bodies moving closer together on what Hyunjin realized was his own bed. Once he's declared missing, you have power of attorney. We liquidate the holdings. Blame it on a rival family, maybe the Lim Syndicate, and start a war. In the chaos, we consolidate. And the courier? Hyerin asked suddenly. Hyunjin's heart hammered against his ribs. He looked back down the hallway. Samantha was still there, watching him from the shadows, her face pale in the dim light. The courier, Hyunsu repeated. The American woman, Samantha. She saw me let you in through the service entrance earlier. She was making a delivery when you arrived. I told her to wait in the kitchen, that Mr. Choi would sign for the package when he called in from Tokyo. Ah. Hyunsu's voice was casual, dismissive. She's a loose end. A small one. But still. After we're done here, I'll go handle it. I'll tell her there was a change of plans, that she needs to come with me to verify some documents. I'll take her for a drive. Make it clean, Hyerin said. I don't want complications. And make sure it happens far from here. I don't want any connection to this address. Of course, Jagiya. Hyunjin heard the wet sound of a kiss. His wife kissing the man who was planning to murder him. Rage, hot and blinding, flooded his vision. They were going to kill the courier. Just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just for existing. Hyunjin had heard enough. He had the element of surprise. He had a gun. He could kick open that door and end Hyunsu and Hyerin right now. It would be justice. It would be satisfying. He raised the weapon, preparing to pivot around the door frame. Suddenly, a hand clamped over his wrist. Hyunjin nearly fired, spinning around. It was Samantha. She had crept down the hallway behind him, silent as smoke. She shook her head frantically, her eyes wide with urgency. She pulled on his arm, dragging him away from the door. He tried to shake her off, mouthing, I can take them. Samantha pulled a smartphone from her jacket pocket and held it up to his face. It was a live video feed. Hyunjin squinted at the screen. It showed the lobby of the building 49 floors below. Men in tactical gear were entering through the service entrance. They weren't building security. They wore black armbands with a symbol Hyunjin recognized. Hyunsu's personal crew, the men he had been quietly recruiting over the past 2 years. There were at least 15 of them. Samantha tapped the screen and swiped. Another camera angle. The private elevator. 3 more men with submachine guns riding up. Hyunjin felt his blood turn to ice. If he fired his gun now, he would kill Hyunsu and Hyerin. But he would be trapped in the penthouse. Hyunsu's hit squad would swarm the apartment within minutes and cut him to pieces. He was outmanned, outgunned, and trapped in his own fortress. Samantha tugged his arm again, pointing toward the service entrance she had emerged from. Hyunjin looked at the bedroom door one last time. He could hear Hyerin laughing, a soft, throaty sound he used to love. He memorized that sound. He would use it as fuel later. He holstered his gun and nodded to Samantha. She turned and moved silently back down the hallway. Hyunjin followed, his mind racing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. These stories only live because you share them. Hit that bell, and let's continue. They reached the service entrance. Samantha pressed her palm against a panel Hyunjin had never noticed before. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft. Hyunjin blinked. He had designed this building with the architects. He knew every inch of it. He didn't know there was a passage behind the service wall. "How do you know about this?" he whispered. Samantha didn't look like a terrified courier anymore. Her posture had shifted. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. "I deliver packages to every floor of this building," she whispered back. "I know every service corridor, every maintenance shaft, every emergency exit. It's my job to know how to get in and out of places without being seen." "That's convenient for a courier. That's survival for a black woman working in Seoul," she said simply. "Get in." "They're coming." Hyunjin heard the soft chime of the private elevator arriving. Boots on marble, he climbed into the shaft. The space was tight, smelling of concrete dust and electrical wiring. Samantha pulled the panel shut behind them just as the heavy thud of footsteps echoed in the hallway they had just vacated. "Check every room," a voice commanded. "The building sensors showed the private elevator was used 20 minutes ago. He's here." Hyunjin pressed himself against the wall of the shaft. It was pitch black. He could hear Samantha breathing next to him. Controlled, rhythmic breaths. Not the breathing of a panicked civilian. "There's a ladder," she whispered, her voice close to his ear. "It goes down to the parking sublevels. I've used it before when the elevators were out." "You've used the emergency maintenance shafts of my building?" "I told you," she said. "I know how to disappear." They descended in darkness, rung by rusted rung. Hyunjin's mind was still processing the betrayal. Hee-rin, Hyun-soo. 7 years of marriage, 20 years of brotherhood. All of it ash. After what felt like an eternity, his feet hit concrete. Samantha clicked on a small LED flashlight, shielding the beam with her hand. They were in the lowest parking sublevel, the one reserved for maintenance vehicles and emergency equipment. It smelled of motor oil and damp concrete. "My car is useless," Hyunjin said. "They'll have the garage exits monitored." "I have a vehicle," Samantha said. Hyunjin looked at her. "A courier van," she explained. "Parked in the delivery bay on sublevel 2, it has the company logo. It comes and goes from this building every day. No one looks twice at it." "A delivery van," Hyunjin repeated. The absurdity of the situation almost made him laugh. The king of Seoul's underworld was going to escape a coup in a courier van. "Lead the way." They moved through the shadows of the parking structure, avoiding the security cameras Samantha somehow knew the angles of. They reached the delivery bay, and there it was. A white van with the discreet courier company logo on the side. Seoul Express Secure Deliveries. Samantha unlocked it with a key fob. They climbed inside. The back was filled with packages and padded envelopes, the tools of her legitimate trade. She started the engine. It hummed to life, quiet and reliable. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To pulling out of the bay." Hyunjin thought fast. He couldn't go to his safe houses. Hyunsoo knew about all of them. He couldn't go to his captains. If Hyunsoo had turned Hee-rin, he had likely turned others. "The docks," Hyunjin said. "Incheon." "The port?" "There's a man there. Lim Dong-jun. He runs the Lim Syndicate." Samantha's hands tightened on the wheel. "You want to go to your rival? They'll kill you on sight." "They might," Hyunjin admitted. "But Hyunsoo is planning to frame them for my death. He wants to start a war between our families. If I show up alive at Lim Dong-jun's door, I become proof of his innocence. I become useful." "That's insane." "That's politics." Samantha was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded and pressed harder on the accelerator. They were leaving the parking structure when headlights flared behind them. 2 black SUVs. "They found us," Samantha said, her voice tight. "Drive," Hyunjin commanded. "Now." The courier van was not built for high-speed chases. It swayed and groaned as Samantha pushed it through the narrow streets of Hanamdong, weaving between luxury sedans and late-night taxis. The SUVs gained on them, their engines roaring. Bullets pinged off the back doors. "They're shooting at us!" Samantha screamed. "Keep driving!" Hyunjin shouted. He pulled his Glock and kicked out the rear window of the van. Glass showered onto the street. He fired twice at the lead SUV, aiming for the tires. The first shot went wide. The second hit the front tire. The SUV swerved violently, clipping a parked car and spinning out. One down. One to go. "Take the expressway," Hyunjin yelled. "Head for the Incheon Bridge." Samantha yanked the wheel, emerging onto the Gangbyeon Expressway. The van's engine screamed in protest as it hit 140 kilometers per hour. The remaining SUV was still behind them, closing the gap. "We can't outrun them," Samantha said. "This van tops out at 150. That's a Hyundai Genesis. It can do 250 easy." Hyunjin looked around the back of the van. Packages, padded envelopes, packing tape. And there, in a corner, a fire extinguisher. "Get me close to them," Hyunjin said. "What?" "When I tell you brake hard, then accelerate." Samantha's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. Something passed between them, a wordless trust born of desperation. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready. Now." Samantha slammed the brakes. The van's tires shrieked. The SUV behind them didn't react fast enough. It closed the gap in an instant. Hyunjin yanked the pin from the fire extinguisher and threw it out the broken rear window. The metal canister bounced on the asphalt and went under the SUV's front wheels. Samantha floored the accelerator. Behind them, there was a sickening crunch as the SUV's front axle hit the extinguisher. The vehicle lurched, its trajectory thrown off. It spun across 3 lanes and slammed into the expressway barrier in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Hyunjin slumped against the wall of the van, breathing hard. "You're insane," Samantha said. "I'm alive," he corrected. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the lights of Seoul blurring past. Then Samantha spoke again. "My name isn't Samantha." Hyunjin looked at her. "I mean, it is. Legally. Samantha Johnson. That's what my passport says. But everyone back home called me Yoonju." "Yoonju?" "My grandmother was Korean. She raised me after my parents died. She always said I had a Korean soul in an American body." She laughed softly. "She gave me that name. It means silver pearl." Hyunjin studied her profile in the passing streetlights, the sharp angle of her jaw, the intelligence in her eyes. "Why are you helping me, Yoonju?" he asked. "You heard them. They were going to kill you regardless. You could have run. Why come back for me?" Yoonju was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was low. 3 years ago, there was a shootout in Itaewon. Syndicate business, I don't know the details. A bystander got hit. A young black man. He was just walking home from his English teaching job. Hyunjin's jaw tightened. He remembered the incident. Collateral damage. It happened sometimes. "He was my cousin," Yoonju said. "Marcus. He was the reason I came to Korea. He convinced me there was opportunity here, and then he was gone." "I'm sorry," Hyunjin said. The words felt inadequate. After he died, someone sent money to his family, enough to cover the funeral, the hospital bills, the flight to bring his body home to Chicago. The payment came through an anonymous account, but I traced it. Hyunjin said nothing. "It was you," Yoonju said. "You didn't know who Marcus was. You just knew a bystander got hurt and you paid for it. That's the only reason I'm in this van with you instead of running for the airport." "I didn't do it for charity," Hyunjin said harshly. "It was business. Clean up the mess. Keep the peace." "It saved my aunt's house," Yoonju said. "And besides, I saw how Hyunsu looked at me when I made deliveries, like I was an object, or an obstacle. I'd rather take my chances with the devil who paid for a funeral than the one who wanted to add to the body count." "Fair enough," Hyunjin grunted. "How far to Incheon?" 40 minutes if traffic stays light. Then drive faster. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, do me a favor. Smash that subscribe button. Every notification brings another story to life. Now, where were we? The Incheon docks at 2 a.m. were a graveyard of shipping containers and industrial silence. Lim Dongjun's territory. Yunju pulled the courier van into a shadowed alley between two warehouses and killed the engine. "This is as far as I go," she said. "The Lim compound is 2 blocks north. The building with the crane painted red." Hyunjin didn't move immediately. He looked at her. "You should leave," he said. "Go to the airport. Take the first flight anywhere. Japan, Singapore. I don't care. Get out of Korea. Tonight." "Is that an order?" "It's advice." Yunju's hands were still on the wheel. She stared straight ahead. "What happens if you walk into that compound and they shoot you? Then you drive away and never look back." "And what happens if they don't shoot you?" Hyunjin was quiet for a moment. "Then I come back for you," he said. "And I give you a job that doesn't involve running packages." Yunju finally turned to look at him. Her eyes were unreadable in the darkness. "I'll wait 1 hour," she said. "After that, I'm gone." Hyunjin nodded. He opened the van door. "Mr. Choi," Yunju called. He paused. "Don't die." For the first time that night, Hyunjin almost smiled. "I'll try." The Lim compound was a fortress of corrugated steel and razor wire, nestled between massive shipping cranes that looked like the skeletons of prehistoric beasts. Hyunjin walked toward the main gate with his hands raised, his gun left in the van. Floodlights snapped on, blinding him. "Stop where you are!" The voice boomed from a loudspeaker. Hyunjin stopped. He felt naked without his weapon, exposed. "My name is Choi Hyunjin," he called out in Korean. "I want to speak with Lim Dongjun." Silence. Then laughter, crackling through the speaker. "Choi Hyunjin is dead. Plane crash. It's all over the news." "The news is wrong," Hyunjin said. "I'm standing right here, and I have information that Lim Dongjun needs to hear." More silence. Then the gate creaked open. 3 men emerged, wearing leather jackets and flat expressions. Old school Incheon muscle. They patted Hyunjin down roughly, found nothing, and gestured for him to follow. The interior of the warehouse was set up like a throne room. In the center sat an elderly man in a traditional hanbok, incongruous against the industrial backdrop. His face was weathered like driftwood, his eyes sharp as broken glass. Lim Dongjun, 73 years old, 30 years in the port smuggling business. The only rival Hyunjin had never been able to eliminate. "Choi Hyunjin," Lim Dongjun said, his voice a gravelly rasp. "You look like you crawled out of a grave." "I feel like it," Hyunjin admitted. "Thank you for seeing me." "I haven't decided if I'm seeing you or burying you." Lim Dongjun leaned forward. "Explain why I shouldn't call your little underboss right now and tell him I have his missing boss." "Because Park Hyun-soo is planning to frame you for my murder," Hyunjin said flatly. "He wants to start a war between our families. He'll use my death to rally my captains, claim you assassinated me, and move on your ports within the month." Lim Dongjun's eyes narrowed. "And why should I believe you?" "Because if I wanted to attack you, I wouldn't walk in here alone and unarmed. And because Hyun-soo is a rabid dog. You know this. If he takes my seat, he'll bring chaos to everything. He has no code. And you do. I have enough of one to pay for funerals when bystanders get hit." Something flickered in Lim Dongjun's eyes. Recognition. Respect. "What are you offering, Choi Hyunjin?" "An alliance. Help me take back my house. And I'll give you the Gangnam distribution network. All of it." The room went very still. The Gangnam network was worth hundreds of millions. It was the crown jewel of the Choi Syndicate's legitimate business front. "That's a steep price," Lim Dongjun said. "It's the price of survival." Lim Dongjun studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "You know, Choi Hyunjin, I've wanted to kill you for 30 years. But I always respected you. You're a man who keeps his word." He stood up slowly, using his cane for support. "How do we proceed?" "Hyun-soo is holding a memorial service for me tomorrow night," Hyunjin said. "At my penthouse. He's invited the press, the politicians, the captains. He's going to announce his assumption of leadership." "And you want to crash your own funeral?" I want to walk in through the front door, Hyunjin said, and I want you there as my witness. If you come, with your men, Hyun-soo won't dare make a move. And when I reveal myself, he'll be trapped. You want me to provide the muscle. I want you to provide legitimacy. The underworld respects your name, Dongjun-shi. If you're standing next to me when I come back from the dead, no one will question my authority. Lim Dongjun was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. We have a deal, Choi Hyunjin. But if you betray me, I'll kill you myself. I would expect nothing less. The penthouse was transformed. Black silk draped the windows. White chrysanthemums filled every surface, the traditional funeral flower. Soft Korean classical music played from hidden speakers. Hee-rin had spared no expense for her husband's memorial. The great room was filled with Seoul's elite, politicians in dark suits, business executives in somber ties, captains of the Choi Syndicate standing along the walls like statues. News cameras were positioned at the back, broadcasting the grief of the beautiful widow to millions. Hee-rin stood before the assembled crowd, dressed in a flowing black hanbok, a handkerchief pressed to her dry eyes. My husband, she began, her voice quavering artfully, was a complicated man. But he loved this city, he loved our organization, and he would want us to continue his work, to honor his legacy. Park Hyun-soo stood behind her, wearing an expression of practiced sorrow. He was already thinking about the speech he would give next, the one where he humbly accepted the burden of leadership. And so, Hye-rin continued, it is with heavy hearts that we— The lights went out, gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone screamed. Stay calm, Hyun-soo shouted. It's just a power issue. Security, get the backup. A single spotlight snapped on. It didn't shine on Hye-rin, it shone on the elevator doors. The doors slid open. Choi Hyun-jin stepped out. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit. He was wearing the same clothes he had escaped in 2 nights ago, torn and stained. There was a bandage on his forehead. He looked like a ghost. He looked like a revenant risen from the grave to claim what was his. He held a microphone in one hand. The silence was absolute. Hye-rin's face went white. Her hands dropped to her sides, the handkerchief fluttering to the floor. Hyun-soo reached for the gun under his jacket, but he froze. Dozens of red laser dots appeared on his chest. Along the walls, Lim Dongjun's men had drawn their weapons in the darkness. Hello, Yobo, Hyunjin said, his voice booming through the speaker system. You started my funeral without me. He walked forward, slow and deliberate. The crowd parted before him like the sea before Moses. Hyun-soo, Hyunjin said, stopping in front of his former brother. You told my wife I was at the bottom of the Sea of Japan. You were half right. The old Hyunjin is dead. He died when he walked through that door and heard his best friend planning his murder. Hyun-soo's face was slick with sweat. Hyung, I can explain. No, Hyunjin said softly. You can't. He turned to the crowd. This memorial is over. Everyone except Park Hyun-soo and my wife, leave. The crowd scrambled for the exits. The cameras kept rolling. The politicians fled first. Within minutes, the penthouse was empty except for Hyun-jin, Hye-rin, Hyun-soo, and the silent wall of Lim Dongjun's enforcers. Lim Dongjun himself emerged from the shadows leaning on his cane. Well, Choi Hyunjin, the old man said, you do know how to make an entrance. Hyunjin didn't smile. He looked at Hyun-soo, who had fallen to his knees. Hyung, Hyun-soo begged. It was Hye-rin. She manipulated me, The Albanians didn't put a bomb on my plane, Hyun-soo. Hyunjin interrupted. And they didn't plan to kill a courier just because she saw too much. That was you. He turned to Lim Dongjun. He's yours. Do what you will. He is no longer Choi. Hyun-soo screamed as 2 of Lim's men grabbed him by the arms. He kicked and thrashed, begging for mercy. But mercy was a currency Hyun-soo had spent 2 nights ago. They dragged him out the service entrance. The door slammed shut, cutting off his pleas. Hyunjin turned to Hye-rin. She wasn't on her knees. She was standing rigid, her beautiful face a mask of frozen shock. Even now, even caught, there was defiance in her eyes. "I am your wife," she said. "The law. The law thinks I'm dead," Hyunjin interrupted. "And the underworld knows you tried to kill the king. You have no protection here, Hyerin. No status." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the velvet box he had carried from Tokyo. Hyerin's eyes flickered to it. Greed, even in the face of ruin. Hyunjin opened the box, and the jade bracelet glittered in the spotlight, pale green and luminous. "I bought this for you in Tokyo," he said. "I was going to apologize. I was going to try to fix us." Tears welled in Hyerin's eyes. "Hyunjin, please. We can fix it. I was confused. Hyunsu manipulated me." Hyunjin snapped the box shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "No," he said. "He just showed me who you really are." He walked past her, toward the service entrance. "Yunju," he called. A figure emerged from the shadows. Yunju, still in her courier uniform, still carrying herself with that quiet dignity that made her easy to overlook. Hyunjin took her hand and placed the velvet box in her palm. Hyerin's gasp was almost theatrical. "You're giving it to the courier? To that—" "She's not just a courier," Hyunjin said, turning back to his wife. "She's the woman who saved my life while you were planning my funeral." He nodded to his security chief, who had emerged looking pale and ashamed. "Escort Mrs. Choi off the property. She leaves with nothing. No car, no jewelry, no coat. She walks out the front door exactly as she is." "Hyunjin!" Hyerin shrieked as the guards took her arms. "It's February. You can't—" "You have your life," Hyunjin said, turning his back on her. "That is more than you left for me." Her screams faded as she was dragged to the elevator, cast out of the kingdom she had tried to steal. "We're almost at the end, but before we go, if you're still here, you're one of us now. Subscribe, share, and let's keep these stories alive." Now, the final chapter. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the silence of danger. It was the silence of aftermath. On the air clearing after a storm, Lim Dongjun walked up to Hyunjin. The old man looked tired, but satisfied. "The Gangnam Network," he reminded. "That was the deal." Hyunjin nodded. "A deal is a deal. My lawyers will have the paperwork ready by tomorrow." It was a massive loss. Hyunjin had just given away a significant portion of his empire. But as he looked around the empty penthouse, the scattered chrysanthemums, the abandoned champagne glasses, he realized he didn't care. He had purged the rot from his house. "You are a man of your word, Choi Hyunjin," Lim Dongjun said, offering his hand. "Maybe now we can have peace." "Peace sounds good," Hyunjin said, shaking the old man's hand. Lim Dongjun glanced at Yunju, who was still holding the velvet box, looking stunned. "You have a sharp one there," he grunted. "She has the eyes of a wolf. Keep her close." "I intend to," Hyunjin said. The Lim Syndicate men filed out, leaving Hyunjin and Yunju alone in the wrecked penthouse. The floor was littered with flower petals. The catering trays were untouched. The black silk drapes hung like mourning veils. Hyunjin sat down on the edge of one of the white leather sofas, groaning as the adrenaline finally left his body. Yunju walked over to him. She didn't say anything. She sat down next to him, their shoulders almost touching. "You okay?" she asked softly. "I've had better weeks," Hyunjin admitted. He looked at her. Her courier uniform was wrinkled. Her hair had come loose from its professional bun. She was the most real thing he had seen in years. "Why didn't you run?" he asked. "When the lights went out, you could have slipped away. Taken the bracelet. Vanished." Yunju looked at the box in her hand. She opened it, studying the jade in the dim light. Then she snapped it shut and set it on the sofa between them. "I told you," she said. "I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of being the person everyone looks through. And besides," she added with a slight smile, "you owe me overtime pay." Hyunjin laughed. It started as a chuckle and turned into something deeper, something that hurt his bruised ribs but felt like release. Over time, he said, wiping his eyes. Yes, I suppose I do. He looked at her, his expression turning serious. Yunju, he said, I can't let you go back to being a courier. You know too much. You've seen too much. Yunju stiffened. So what? You're going to kill me after all? No, Hyunjin said. I'm going to promote you. Hyunsu's position is open. Yunju stared at him. You want me to be your underboss? I deliver packages. I don't run criminal operations. You hacked into my building's security network, Hyunjin said. You knew every emergency exit and maintenance shaft. You drove a courier van at 150 kilometers per hour through Gangnam at midnight. You walked into a rival syndicate's stronghold with me and didn't flinch. He leaned forward. You're more qualified than Hyunsu ever was. I don't need muscle. I need someone who sees what everyone else misses. Someone who knows how to be invisible until it's time to be seen. Yunju looked around the penthouse. She thought about her life, the struggle, the invisibility, the feeling of being a ghost in a country that wasn't quite home. Then she looked at Hyunjin, to the man who had fought beside her in the darkness. I have conditions, she said. Name them. First, she said, my grandmother in Chicago gets a house, a real one, paid off. Done. Second, I want to finish my degree, business administration. I was 2 semesters away when I ran out of money. I'll pay for it. And third, Yunju leaned in, her dark eyes locking with his. You never lied to me. Everyone in this world lies. If I'm going to stand next to you, I need to know the truth. Always. Hyunjin looked at her. He saw the strength in her jaw, the intelligence in her gaze. He realized that losing the Gangnam network to gain her loyalty was the best deal he had ever made. I swear it, he said quietly. To the world, silence. To you, the truth. He reached out and took her hand. This time, it wasn't for survival. It was a promise. 6 months later. The charity gala at the Choi Tower was the event of the season. The penthouse had been completely renovated. No more dark wood and heavy drapes. It was bright, modern, filled with orchids instead of chrysanthemums. Choi Hyunjin moved through the crowd, shaking hands with senators and CEOs. He looked different, lighter. The heavy burden of paranoia seemed to have lifted. Mr. Choi, a reporter called out. Is it true that you've appointed a foreigner to your executive team? There are rumors about a mysterious American woman. Right here, a voice said. Yunju stepped up beside him. She wasn't wearing a courier uniform. She was wearing a tailored black suit that fit her like armor. On her wrist was the jade bracelet, pale green against her dark skin. She didn't look down. She didn't shrink. She looked the reporter in the eye with a gaze that could freeze water. Miss Yunju, the reporter stammered, what exactly is your role in the Choi organization? Yunju smiled. It was a small, sharp smile. She slipped her arm through Hyunjin's, her fingers resting lightly on his sleeve. I handle deliveries, she said smoothly. I make sure everything gets where it needs to go. Hyunjin covered her hand with his own. They shared a look, a secret language born in a dark hallway and forged in fire. The courier who had stayed silent was now the voice that commanded the room. And as for the Korean mafia boss who came home early, he learned that the most dangerous thing in his penthouse wasn't the gun in his safe. It was the woman who delivered his packages. Choi Hyunjin had lost a wife, but he had found a queen. And together, they were untouchable. Wow, what a journey, right? From a terrified courier hiding in the shadows to the Queen of Seoul's underworld, Yunju proved that you should never underestimate the person who knows how to disappear. And Hyunjin? He finally learned that loyalty is worth more than all the money in the world. It just goes to show. Sometimes the biggest twists in life happen when you come home early. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next episode. I have an incredible story coming next week, a billionaire and a contract marriage that goes horribly wrong. You will not want to miss it. Drop a comment below. If you were Yoonju, would you have saved Hyunjin, or would you have taken the jade bracelet and run? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.